The longest government shutdown in American history just ended, but not for the reason you think. This was not about budgets or immigration or even Obamacare. This was the first real test of political power in Trump 2.0, and both parties walked away with bruises that they're pretending do not exist. Today, I'm going to break down who actually won, who lost, and why this shutdown may decide 2026 midterms. The 43-day government shutdown, the longest in US history, is finally over. President Trump signed the bipartisan funding bill on November 12th, ending a standoff that broke the previous record set back in the first Trump administration. But now that it's over, the big question is who actually won this fight and who lost. Because the public explanations for both sides leave out critical context. My take isn't exactly mainstream on either side. But before we get into that unpopular opinion, let's lay out the facts and the political reality surrounding this shutdown, because this was not just another round of DC theatrics. This shutdown had real and concrete consequences. Consequences that might potentially shape 2026 midterms and possibly the balance of power in DC for years to come. Hey guys, come closer. YouTube tells me 85% of viewers are not subscribed. If you find this breakdown useful, hit subscribe. It genuinely helps the channel keep going and lets me bring you more fact-driven analysis without noise or a nefarious spin. Now go back to the video. Before we talk politics, we need to talk about the people who always pay the price. In every government shutdown, regardless of who is in power or what the excuse is, the first and biggest losers are the people who have nothing to do with the political fight. Federal workers and their families. Americans relying on critical services. Small businesses waiting on federal loans and contracts. Seniors waiting on delayed services. And a nearly 1 in 8 Americans who rely on SNAP food assistance. These are the people who feel the pain immediately. Missed paychecks, frozen benefits, delayed medical approvals, and uncertainty about how long they can keep things afloat. Shutdowns are political battles fought by politicians but paid for by ordinary people. And that human cost should always be at the starting point of this conversation, not an afterthought, in my opinion. Now, what was this fight supposedly about? According to Democrats, this shutdown was about one thing: the expiration of the Enhanced Affordable Care Act, or the Obamacare subsidies. Let's be clear, these subsidies matter. ACA subsidy is the only reason millions of Americans can afford health insurance at all. The ACA helps 24 million Americans access affordable healthcare plans. And because of basic insurance math, it affects everyone else too. If fewer people can afford to be in this insurance pool, premiums rise for everyone, including people who get insurance through their employer. And for the umpteenth time, because this talking point refuses to die. Undocumented immigrants cannot legally receive ACA subsidies, full stop. This has been confirmed by fact checkers, independent policy experts, and federal agencies for more than a decade. Given how diverse the Democratic Party is, from progressive like AOC to moderates like John Fetterman, defending ACA subsidies was one of the few policy areas where the entire party could agree. And yes, renewing those subsidies are absolutely critical. But I do not think this was the real driving force behind the shutdown, at least not the only one. To understand this shutdown, you have to understand the political terrain Democrats walked into in 2025. No House majority, no Senate majority, and no meaningful leverage over the White House. For months, they have had virtually no ability to check Trump's rapid expansion of executive authority. And this has not been a normal presidency, even by Trump's own previous standards. We are talking about warrantless boat bombings in the Caribbean and Pacific, actions widely criticized by legal scholars as extrajudicial killings, which, by the way, is an attempt to get Americans desensitized on murdering foreigners, in my opinion. But I digress. This administration is testing the limits of executive power in ways we have not seen in modern history. Democrats have been desperate for any point of leverage. But making the shutdown explicitly about Trump's authoritarian behavior would have gone nowhere. It would have polarized the issue instantly. Why? Because voters who think Trump is an authoritarian are already voting Democratic. So instead, Democrats frame the shutdown around something every voter feels on a personal level: affordability, especially healthcare affordability. And whether you agree with the tactics or not, the strategy worked. 50% of self identified MAGA Republicans say they are worried about the ACA subsidies expiring. 70% of Americans overall share the same concern. Healthcare is back on the national agenda, whether Republicans wanted it there or not. Republicans walked into the shutdown with a message, and it collapsed almost immediately. First, they claimed Democrats wanted to give billions in healthcare to illegal immigrants. Again, flat out false. There is not a single policy, bill, or proposal that does that. And when that did not land, Republicans shifted to we won't negotiate until Democrats reopen the government, which makes no sense. The entire point of a shutdown is to negotiate before reopening the government. Otherwise, the majority party has no incentive to compromise. And despite all the noise, Republicans never offered a serious ACA proposal, not even a temporary 1 year extension. The Republicans held the government shut for 43 days without offering a real policy alternative, without even getting to the negotiations table. In the end, 8 Democratic senators crossed the aisle and voted with the Republicans to reopen the government. And that immediately detonated a political firestorm inside the Democratic Party. This was not just a dispute about a shutdown. It was a continuation of an entire battle that's been building for years, especially in the recent weeks. The same battle we saw after the massive electoral victories of affordability-focused progressives like Zoran Mamdani of New York City and Mika Sherrill of New Jersey. This shutdown vote exacerbated this debate between moderates and progressives. But this story is more nuanced than it looks. Here's what stands out. Every Democratic senator who crossed the line is either retiring soon or not up for re-election for years. In other words, these were the only Democrats who could absorb the political hit. This, to me, looks less like defection and more like coordination. Party leadership almost certainly mapped out who could take the vote without endangering vulnerable seats. It is a strategy we have seen countless times before in both parties. And honestly, I think reopening the government was the right call for the country. Airports stabilize ahead of the holiday travel crush. Unpaid federal workers get back pay. Laid off federal workers are brought back. SNAP benefits resume. Essential services restart. Ending the shutdown does not mean Democrats lost, especially in light of Trump asking Republican senators to get rid of the filibuster. It actually means they preserved the ability to fight again, especially since this funding lasts only until January 30 of 2026. That's within 2 months. The real battle has not even started yet. Now let's do some political math, shall we? Here's the cold, simple reality. White House was pressing the courts to not allow people to have food assistance, while President Donald Trump was either gallivanting across Asia getting red carpet treatment or hosting Great Gatsby-like extravagant parties in his country club at Mar-a-Lago. Republicans did not even want to negotiate. Speaker Mike Johnson had sent every representative home. Say, for example, if Democrats had accepted a 1 year AC extension, the only thing Republicans were even willing to consider, the Democrats would have been solving Republicans' election year problem, not their own. They would have essentially helped the GOP avoid a healthcare disaster in 2026 while leaving the ACA essentially unchanged long term. By holding out for 43 days, Democrats did something more impactful. They forced healthcare affordability back into the national spotlight. Democrats positioned themselves as the party fighting to keep premiums down. They made Republicans look tone deaf and out of touch with the common people. And they turned healthcare into a defining issue of the 2026 midterms. Democrats are far better positioned to win that argument than they were 2 months ago. Quick reminder, America is the only wealthy democracy where failing to pass a budget shuts down the entire government. Just let that sink in. Other countries have backup mechanisms, automatic funding, or continuity provisions. Only the United States keeps the lights off, on purpose. Now another recent development. Republicans called the end of the shutdown a democratic capitulation. But the reopening triggered something else entirely. Arizona Democrat Adelita Grijalva who Republicans had blocked from taking her House seat for 7 weeks, has finally sworn in. And her signature was the final vote needed to initiate the discharge petition forcing the release of the Epstein files. Her seat was the domino that fell. And now the process is moving, whether Republicans wanted it to or not. I will be breaking this down in an upcoming video. No rumors, no conspiracies, and no sensationalizing. Just verifiable facts and what comes next. So, who actually won this shutdown? Who lost? And did Democrats just play a longer game? More strategic game than people realize? Comment below and tell me what you think. And make sure you're subscribed. The Epstein Files breakdown is coming soon, and you're going to want the real story without the noise. Thank you for listening. This is Pawan Pantha, and I'll see you next time. Facts and opinions. Dum 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 dum.